Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to another 2D hack and slash lesson. This is a pay what you want course. There are two links in the description, itch.io, and one is my Udemy pixel art course, and those are the two ways that you can support this course if you want to. In this lesson, we're going to be fixing our because we have this coupling, right? Remember, we talked about coupling, which is where we're coupling our states to our animation end event. And we want to remove this. We want to be able to check to see if an animation has ended inside of our states and not have to do it inside of this event right here. We'd also like to be able to check if specific frames were hit. And that's just easiest for creating our hitboxes, which is we're kind of working our way towards adding hitboxes into the game. And so we need to write a script that will allow us to check if we've hit a specific frame, right? So let's try this. Let's create a new script, and we're going to call this animation hit frame. Okay? And this script will take one argument. We'll call it frame, arg frame, like this, and we'll get access to this argument with the local variable var frame equals argument 0, like this. Okay, so we've set up our script. Now we need to return out either true or false based on whether or not we've hit this frame, right? So we'll say return, and then we'll set up an expression here, and we'll say frame, we'll say image index, which is our current image index, right, equals frame. So this is an expression. It will return either true or false based on whether or not our image index is equal to our frame. Right, now let's go into our skeleton and we'll try setting this up. So we can come into here and let's do it with our role, okay? And we'll just say, we'll add an if statement here. We'll say if animation hit frame, and we want to say the last frame of our roll. Let's come to our roll animation. Oops, skeleton roll. Right here. There's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is frame 6 because it starts counting at 0, even though up here it shows 1. In code it starts counting at 0. So we come back to our skeleton and we say animation hit frame 6. Then we do this and we say tab in state equals move, like this, right? And then since we've got it set up in here, we should be able to go into our animation end event and remove the roll state from this. And now our roll state should no longer have coupling to our animation end event. Oh, but wait a minute, it's not working. What? What's going on, right? That's what you're thinking. I knew it wouldn't work. This lesson, I should say, is a little bit math heavy. And it's also, I would say it's a little bit tricky. So bear with me, be patient. I'll try and step you through this. So why isn't it working? Well, let's actually get our animation hit frame, and inside of here, we're gonna do a show debug message. So we'll say show debug message, and we'll do image index, image underscore index. Okay, so it should show our image index every single frame, and we can see what's happening with it. So let's roll, and then we'll stop the game. And then you can come down here to see what our image index was doing. Now let's look at this. We've got, let's just take a segment here. We've got 0.35, 7, 105, 1.4, 1.75. It goes all the way up, and we checked to see if it was equal to 6, right? Well, look, we got 5.95, 6.3, 6.65. We never actually hit 6. And that's because our image index it's not an integer, meaning it has decimal values to it. Okay? So now the next thing that you guys are going to think to do, I'm sure, is you're going to say image index is this is the next thing that you would try to do here. You would say return image index is greater than or equal to frame. And this technically works in this specific case, right? Because then we leave our roll state. So in this specific case, this works. However, it won't work when you're creating a hurt box. Why? Because if you remember when we were displaying the image index, there were 3 frames where it was greater than or equal to 6. Which would mean if we use this to create a hurt box, it would be true 3 times in a row, which would then create 3 hurt boxes within 3 frames, which would deal 3 times the damage, right? Because you'd be creating 3 hurt boxes. So how can we make it so it only runs this bit of code a single time? We can't use greater than or equal to frame. We also can't do and image index is less than frame plus 1, because that's still going to be, we're still going to have 2 or 3 frames inside of frame 6 where it's going to return true, right? Well, one thing you can do is we know the range. Remember when we printed it? Was 0.35. Let's check to see what our animation speed is for this character, or for this state, for the roll state. Oops. So for the roll state, we set the animation speed to 0.7. Okay. Now that range right there, 0.7. We know that because we're adding 0.7 every frame, that our image index is always going to be within that range. So here's the trick. Here's the math trick. We can do return image index is greater than or equal to frame, and image index is less than frame plus image speed, right? Because our image speed is 0.7. So then we know we're always going to hit, a number between frame 6 and image index 6 and image index 6.7. Yeah, because our image speed is 7, right? 0.7. Yep, 0.7. So inside of our thing, we'll either hit something bigger than 6 or something greater than or equal to 6 or something smaller than 6.7 because our image speed is 0.7. So no matter what we set it to, like let's say the last image index that we had was 5.9 or something, right? Okay, what's 5.9 plus, oops, we've got to do 0.7. What's 5.9 plus 0.7? Because it's going to add 0.7, our image speed, every frame. So what's 5.9 plus 0.7? Well, we're going to end up with 5.6. And guess what? Or 6.6. Doing math live for you. Well, not live, but, you know, for thousands of people that'll potentially watch this video. I can't do basic addition. So we're going to end up with 6.6. And guess what? That number is between these two right here. However, The next frame, we're going to add 0.7 again, and we're going to end up with, what is it, 7.3? 7.3, which then is outside that range, so we only hit it once, right? So if you're using GameMaker Studio 1.4, this should work. And we're actually going to test this in GameMaker Studio 2, this code, by, we'll just test it in our move state to see how many times we hit frame 0. So inside of our move state, no, let's test it in our roll state still. So inside of our roll state, we're going to do another check here. We'll say if animation hit frame, and then we'll do frame 1. If we hit frame 1, then we're going to do show debug message 0. Image index. We'll do our image index again. Okay. So we're going to see how many times we hit frame 1. Now, if you're in GameMaker Studio 1.4, it should only print image index one time during your roll. So you roll. Oops, I got to press the roll button. There we go. If you're in GameMaker Studio 1.4, it should only print it one time. However, in GameMaker Studio 2, what are you guys seeing here? It printed it twice. So we hit frame 1, right? Frame 1, 2 times. Why is that? Why did we hit frame 1 2 times? Remember before we were hitting it multiple times because we weren't checking the range correctly. We were just trying to see if image index was equal to. But this time, we're hitting it twice. And that is because you should also notice down here that our expected image speed is 0.7, which means we expect it to add 0.7 every single frame. Well, if you look at this, we're not adding 0.7 every single frame. We're actually adding 0.35. That's half of what we expect. So in GameMaker Studio 2, there's a change to the way animations work, and it's part of what is affecting why your speeds will be slightly different based on which one you're using, your image speeds. And that changes sprite speed. So if we come into our sprite right here, you can see the sprite speed is set to 15 by default, which is half of our default room speed or game speed frames per second, which is 30. So in order to compensate, GameMaker will take your image speed and then adjust it by how close this is to our room speed of 30. So the solution that I found for this is we can get our actual, oops, this is the wrong script. Animation hit frame, okay. We can get the actual range, right? So var, we can call this, what can we call this? Range, frame range maybe? Range like this. So we originally guessed that our frame range would be equal to our image speed, right? And you can just change this right here to plus frame range. And in GameMaker Studio 1.4, this will work just fine. However, in GameMaker Studio 2, we need to get our sprite speed and adjust it by and multiply our frame range right here by our image speed, I should say, either one. We need to multiply it by the difference. So if our sprite speed is 15 and our room speed is 30, that means that our frame range is going to be half of the image speed, right? So we want to multiply our image speed by 0.5, which would technically work in this case. But what if you change your sprite speed, or what if you change your game speed? That would mess it up. So in order to fix this, instead of just doing 0.5 right here, we're going to do, we're going to get our game speed and we're going to get our sprite speed. So game get speed, and then we have to pass in a type. Let's middle click on this so we can see what types. game speed FPS. That's the one we want. So we'll come back and we'll do game speed underscore FPS like this. Okay, so game speed FPS. And then we're going to divide this by, divided by our, well, let's do this real quick. I'm going to bring up a calculator. Not calendar. Calculator. Okay. So let's do our current scenario. What we want to do is 30 divided by 60, right? Because that's going to give us 0.5. So this right here is actually our, not 30 divided by 60. Calculator. We want to do 15 divided by 30, right? Because 15 is our sprite speed and 30 is our room speed. That gives us 0.5. Okay, so this is our room speed, which is 30. So we actually need to divide our sprite speed. So sprite get speed divided by game get speed. Okay. And sprite get speed, I think it takes an argument as well, which is the sprite index. And so we just want to get whatever sprite index we're currently using. So sprite index like that. So we're getting our sprite speed and we're dividing it by our game speed. And then we're multiplying that by our image speed, which should give us the frame range. So it gets a little bit tricky here. But basically, we're just taking into account and it should only draw once now. And yep, it only draws once right here, 1.5. So now our animation hit frame is now working correctly. And that's, like I said, that's extra for GameMaker Studio 2. If you're in GameMaker Studio 1.4, you can just leave it at the image speed. And let me show you what that script would look like if you're in GameMaker Studio 1.4. You can just take this whole bit right here and get rid of it. This is what it should look like in 1.4. This is what it should look like in GameMaker Studio 2. Okay, hopefully you're able to follow that at least enough to get an idea of what I was talking about. If you have questions, just ask in the comments and I'll do my best to try and clarify farther. Okay, now we've got this working, we can just remove this test right here. And we're doing animation hit frame 6. However, this is a magic number right here, animation hit frame 6. We don't really want to use that number because we know that we want the last frame. So let's create a new script. And we'll call this one animation end. And that's kind of similar to our animation end event, right? Now in this script, we don't have to pass in anything. We're just going to call our animation hit frame script. So we'll say return. There's an ant biting my foot. Holy cow. It's exacting its revenge on me for living here, I guess. Animation end. No. That would be a recursive script. We don't want to do that. Okay. Animation hit frame. That's the one we want. Now, how can we find out what the last frame is? Well, the last frame is always image number. So the total number of images minus 1. That's always your last frame. So we can have this animation end script that just returns animation hit frame image number minus 1. Then we can come up here and instead of doing animation hit frame 6, we can just call animation end. If animation end state equals move. And that is starting to look really, let's see, stop running. Yeah, okay. And that's starting to look much better than before when it was all coupled together. Perfect. Now we can do the same thing in all of our other states. So let's come into, what other states use this? The move state doesn't. Wait, no, I would only know from the animation end event. So attack 1, attack 2, attack 3, they all switch back to the move state, right? So we can just get rid of all this. We can just delete our animation end event, delete. And inside of our step event, we can come into the attack 1 state. And then we just say if animation end state equals move. Minimize it. Come into attack 2. If animation end state equals move. And then inside of attack 3 as well, if animation end state equals move. To our semicolon. Now, it always seems that the Friday video, or the last video of the week, I should say, is one where we just refactor our code to make it look nicer, but okay. Got to test all 3 to make sure they work, and they do seem to be working. But this is really good because now every single bit of code that is relevant to our attack state is now inside the attack state, meaning we don't have to go look at different events to try and track down code. It's all in one place. We know exactly where to look. If there's a bug in our attack state, our attack 1 state, we know where to look. We don't have to go looking through other events. Even though it was just the animation end event, you know, if you continued adding new stuff and had other events that would check code, and let's say our input was inside of an input event, you know, all that stuff outside of it, it just means your code gets really messy and unorganized and very coupled. All of the events coupled to the states. But now our states they basically run independent of each other and independent of other events. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fix our knight, or our skeleton. No, our knight. Yeah. So we'll fix the knight. We'll just make it so that our attack state for the knight now does if animation end state equals chase. Right? Chase. Yep. Semicolon. There we go. And we can just delete the animation end event. Now, like I said, if you guys have trouble, if you have trouble with this video, watch it one more time. Give it a shot. If you're still having trouble, comment, and I'll do my best to help kind of walk you through a little bit more. But I'm trying to show exactly why I have these scripts for animation end, because every time I show people these scripts, they're like, well, can't you just do image index equals? And that's exactly what I first thought, right? But then I realized that it didn't actually work in all cases, and that this is how you get it to work. So interesting how he hits the one frame of the other direction and then turns around. We might have to fix that later, but it doesn't look too bad. So there you go. We're set up and we're poised and ready to start adding in our hitboxes, which is going to be our kind of the next thing that we do in this series. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next lesson.